Hello and welcome to the Bite-Sized Theology Podcast 2 in a Canoe edition. Joining me this week is Sage Blaylock.
Afternoon, everyone.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with the 2 in a Canoe format, it essentially is just we have 2 of us instead of 3 of us, and that is the catchy phrase we've come up with because we are either very smart or very stupid or 5, depending on who you are. So today we will be just kind of goofing around and having some fun, but we do have a very serious theological topic that we will discuss that, you're going to want to stay tuned for. But to begin with, let me just ask this, Sage, what's your quarantine rating? How you doing, man?
My quarantine rating's up to an 8.75.
Whoa.
I got a haircut. I trimmed up the quarantine beard quite a bit, so I feel fresh. I feel revitalized. I feel incredible. I feel like a whole new person.
How's the dial shampoo to hair ratio going now?
So I'm figuring it out. The first couple of showers, of course, I use too much because I'm used to it. And it is Head and Shoulders 2-in-1, by the way. So it's
okay. My fault.
Stuff.
Not dial.
But yeah, the first couple of times I used a bit too much, but I'm getting there. Maybe like a quarter size drop of shampoo will do the trick. So it's been good.
That's
what
good.
about you?
I'm doing all right. We had the Memorial Day weekend, which helped, but the problem is every time you go on a vacation, you come back, it honestly just makes the weeks longer. So I'm slowly losing my mind, as anybody watching on our YouTube can tell. I'm trying to grow a pathetic quarantine beard. I'm really glad Aaron is not on this podcast because he will always embarrass me with his beautiful beard. But speaking of that, we got to get into why Aaron's not on this podcast. And so we just got to be upfront and be honest about where Aaron is. So Sage, I'm going to kick it to you and ask you, do you know where Aaron's at?
So I do know. We talked shortly before when he told me he couldn't come on. So Aaron he represents an emotion that lives inside of a little girl, and he works together with a team of other emotions.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, to direct. Yeah, because it's not him alone.
Right.
That'd
be weird.
No, but this team is working to sort of make this girl's life easier. She just moved to a new city. Things are tough with her parents. No friends yet. So it's just a really rough time for him at work. So it's just been really tough. So
Makes
he's not
sense.
going to be able to make it.
See, I thought that I'd heard that his wife of 60 years or so had passed away very suddenly, and so he had always promised her to take her on this exotic trip to this giant, beautiful waterfall, but never got the chance to. So he tied a bunch of helium balloons to his house and lifted off. But unbeknownst to him, there was a Boy Scout on his porch. So now that's complicated things. Last time I talked to him, he was somewhere over the Midwest, just hoping for a cool breeze.
Man, Aaron's got a rough go with the kids.
He does.
Just not a kids person, but it just keeps running into him. It's rough.
Yeah.
However, I am almost 1,000% sure that you are incorrect.
Okay.
That's what he's doing. When in fact, Aaron is a cowboy action figure of a young boy, and this young boy, Andy's his name, just got a new toy, which is a spaceman. And as you may know, spacemen and cowboys, they don't get along very well.
Was that what that movie Cowboys versus Aliens was about?
Yes, if I understand that correctly, it is. So they're having a rough go of it with each other, and they ended up I think in I'm trying to remember what the kid's name is. Sid, the next door neighbor, I think is what Aaron said. They're stuck in his just Dante's Inferno of a backyard with all the crazy mishmash of toys that have been tortured and destroyed. And it's rough. So it might be a couple of weeks before he gets back.
Well, this reminds me of the time that he got he rented the cabin and found that hot tub time machine, but we'll we'll leave that for another time. But regardless, wherever you are, Aaron, we hope you're doing well. We hope that you were either floating in the right direction, staying away from mean neighbor kids, or guiding emotionally volatile people in a decent way. All right. But Sage, before we get into our opening segment, I need a ruling because, as you know, I think I'm hilarious.
Can confirm.
Yes, I think that I'm funny, not that I am
Yes.
funny.
Yeah, that's what I was confirming, was that you think you're funny. Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
So I made a joke the other day that no one laughed at, but I thought was beautiful. So, little context. Growing up, I lived on a farm for a little while, and we had goats. And all of the goats were named after Bible characters, right? So we had a goat named Samson, a goat named Delilah, a goat named Elijah, a goat named Micah, I think. Really, really stuck with the Old Testament, as you would. But they were talking about that. And my joke that no one laughed at was, I said, if you think about it, it is actually very theologically incorrect to name the goats after famous Bible characters.
Is this a sheep and the goats thing?
It is a sheep and the goats
all
thing.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
But you're not laughing, so I'm guessing that it wasn't all that funny.
So
it's a bummer.
It should be noted, when it comes to comedy, I tend to more appreciate references than actual jokes. So if this happened regularly, I probably would have snickered at that.
Okay. Snicker worthy.
Yes. I don't know if it's funny per se, but it's relatively witty.
That's right. You know how like a Protestant amen is like,
Yes.
That would have been like a Protestant laugh. Just like a
Yeah, mine's normally a just sort of breathe out of my nose. It's not much of a laugh, but
very subtle.
Cue to you that I picked up what you were throwing down. So,
all right. So let's get into this opening segment real fast. We stumbled across something last podcast that I want to revisit, which is the idea of movie mashups, because we had the Would You Rather thrown out. Would you rather every song that you listen to turn into Smash Mouth's All-Star, or every movie that you watch slowly turn into Shrek? So the idea was that watching every movie slowly morph to Shrek would be absolutely delightful. So I here have 5 movie mashups where one movie will turn into another. Your job is to tell me what exact moment in the movie would the switch happen for best comedic effect or best dramatic effect. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I just want everybody to be aware too that like Sage doesn't know this list, and so this could either be hilarious or not funny. we're not sure which way this could go. Okay. The first movie mashup. The movie The Wolf of Wall Street turns into The Gray.
That's so good. So I haven't seen The Wolf of Wall Street.
So that's a bummer.
So that's important to note.
Stock market hedonism.
Yeah, I'm aware of it.
Okay.
I've heard people tell me about it and then tell me I shouldn't watch it.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
So what I'm going to do is cop out and say, what I do know is the first part of the movie is him sort of doing the Martin Scorsese, like narrating like, this was me after, blah, blah, kind of deal before he goes into his real life. So I think what should happen is he gives that story and then boom, he's Liam Neeson waking up in the snow after a plane crash.
That's pretty good. Okay. All right. Second one. The movie Space Jam. Okay. Turns into Star Wars Rogue One, but specifically the last 45 seconds of Rogue One, where Darth Vader shows up and murders everybody. So what would be the moment where that happens in Space Jam?
That's a good one. So let's see. I think So in Space Jam, there's a moment where Bill Murray comes in to not really save the day, but be Bill Murray.
Yeah.
So I think Darth Vader comes in as opposed to Bill Murray and helps save the day. So you have Darth Vader and Michael Jordan on the same basketball team. Let's
Just
go.
working the Monstars. All right. The movie Saving Private Ryan turns into the movie Sleepless in Seattle.
So I also haven't seen Sleepless in Seattle.
It's a rom-com with Tom Hanks. It's the only one I could think of.
Aware of it.
Okay, have you seen the movie Big?
I have seen the movie Big.
So the movie Saving Private Ryan turns into the movie Big.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they are in the boat being shot at. The door is about to go down. And then immediate cut to Tom Hanks stepping on the piano ground.
Pretty good. All right. The movie Waterboy turns into the movie Waterworld.
Oh, man, that's good. So let's see. So I think the best time. You know what? Hold on. Give me your quick breakdown of the finale. Spoiler alert. The final act of Waterworld to refresh me.
I didn't make it through all the.
Okay. So
Kevin Costner just splashing around.
Yeah.
And it like bankrupted a studio.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's see.
Basically, I'm asking you when Waterboy should flood.
Yes. Tell you what, I'm going to go early on in the movie. He's a child who is a water boy for the bigger school.
Yeah.
And then, all the guy spits in the water bucket or whatever, and he gets like berated and kicked out of the thing. And then it immediately cuts into, I guess, the point in Waterworld where Kevin Costner gets gills.
Yeah.
So the movie's probably like 30 minutes max, I think.
Yeah.
I think we all win.
Of Waterworld, so that'll work.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, last one. It's my favorite one, just for the potential. The movie The Karate Kid turns into The Gladiator. Takes a sharp turn.
Okay, so I'm thinking he pulls the crane kick. It looks like an amazing victory.
Are you not entertained?
That would be the way I would go, but it cuts to, spoiler alert, Commodus stabbing Maximus before the final fight. So you get two final fights.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to, for it to work, it would have to be the crane kick fight would have to be the second, would be the fight directly before the final.
Okay.
So that's how I would handle that one.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that was movie mashups. It'll probably, I don't know. I'm a fan of it.
I like it.
We got to work out some kinks, I think, but like.
We'll pitch it to Aaron.
We'll pitch it to Aaron.
We should probably not give orders of anything. We'd be like, hey, have you all seen X movie? Have you seen Y movie? And then just get a list of those so we know that people have seen them.
Also, I think it's funny. I just visualize Aaron when he's listening to this, like face palming. All right, let's get into our main topic today. The quote of the week comes from an unknown source, which is that ball is life. So what we're doing today is a very, very serious topic, which is we are picking the starting 5 basketball team of the Bible. The way this is going to work, Sage has come up with his starting 5 by each position from the Old Testament. I have come up with my starting 5 from the New Testament at each position. So point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. And we have to debate and argue and pick our starting 5, our biblical starting 5. And so this, I think, has been a question that everyone has asked themselves for probably their entire lives. More than almost any theological question comes, hey, if we were in a Space Jam type scenario, which 5 are we sending? And so today we're going to answer that question. So let's kick it off and say, Sage, who is your point guard that you would, again, Sage has the Old Testament and I have the New Testament, and we'll argue between the two.
So for me, my ideal point guard in the history of point guards for my team, NBA speaking, would be a Chris Paul. So it's a person with vision, leadership, who can overcome adversity. The obvious choice is Joseph. He literally has visions, so that's a plus. Leadership, I mean, he saved Egypt and basically the entire Middle Eastern world of the time with his ingenuity. And overcoming adversity. His brothers threw him down a hole and sold him into slavery. And what
adversity.
did he do? He became the second most powerful human being on earth.
That's right. That
is the leader that this basketball team needs. Joseph.
That's a good one. That's going to be hard to kind of maneuver around. So I was thinking, we were thinking along the same lines, because you thought Chris Paul, I was thinking Stockton. I want somebody on my team to set up everybody else, right? Not somebody that'll domineer, but somebody that can rally the troops. So I went with Barnabas, Son of Encouragement, because when you have missed 18 shots in a row, you need somebody clapping, being like, hey, man, we got it. And I would just like to point out that Barnabas, although he pops up only a couple times in the New Testament, and he probably wrote Hebrews, in my opinion. We can debate that later. His nickname is Son of Encouragement. Everybody's just like, that is the dude that you go to if you want to feel better. So I want that leading my basketball team. You know, he's not going to bring the edge, but that's later in the lineup. But he's somebody that can just consistently lift up the entire team and keep everybody in good spirits. And also can, get thrown in prison with Paul. Never gets the clout that Paul gets, but he was there. He took Mark, him and Paul. He stood his ground. So this is a guy who stands his ground, but also nice dude. So I'm going Barnabas, and you're going Joseph. So trying to think, there's no really height or weight indicators, right?
No, there's not very much. Not very much. The one thing I would say is we could have Barnabas coming off the bench, because encouragement is really important. But the greatest encouragers in the history of basketball tend to be
role
starters.
Players.
They tend to be your guy on the end of the bench for the Golden State Warriors clapping when Stephen Curry makes a shot from outside of the stadium. So I think Joseph has the resume. He's got the resume. He's got everything you want. He's got the biblical equivalent of having multiple gold medals and a couple of finals MVPs. Guy's incredible.
It is hard because Joseph is one of the few Old Testament Bible characters that really you got nothing bad to say about. Like, everybody usually has like that one tragic flaw. Joseph, he doesn't really have. He did good.
Yeah, I mean, the worst you can say about him is he's definitely pretty selfish, and he's like, hey, brothers, guess who had a vision of me ruling over all of you?
That's right. As a kid, he was a jerk.
Right? Yes, but that was gone pretty quickly because almost immediately he was thrown into a ravine and then sold into slavery. So it was beaten out of him very quickly.
It was, he adapted. This is opened my eyes that our entire basketball team is going to have a lot of off the court issues. They will have spent multiple years in prison, all of them. Because right now, we'll make Joseph the starting point guard, okay? And so our
wrongly
starting point,
convicted, in my opinion.
Right, no. Yeah, definitely wrongly convicted. His only crime, being too good looking, So Joseph spent 3 years in prison. Was it 3 years or 5 years? I think it was 3 years in prison. And then Barnabas, a couple misdemeanors. I don't think he probably spent a year, but he's had his dust ups. But
he would be labeled character issues.
Yes.
In the NBA.
Yes. Okay. Okay, I agree with that. So Joseph is our starting point guard, off the bench Barnabas to do that clap thing that you do.
Yes. He's high-fiving people after timeouts.
Yes. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah. We should have made this disclaimer at the beginning. We are not allowed to pick God or Jesus for everybody out there being like, pick Jesus. Obviously, that would be the pick. Okay. So just, we're not allowed to pick him.
Yeah, I was super tempted to pick the angel of the Lord a couple of times, but I ended up opting against it, to be fair.
Yeah. All right. So we've got our point guard. Joseph is our point guard. Who is our shooting guard?
So I think with a shooting guard, you have to have someone who is absolutely fearless, someone who is a sharp shooter. You can trust to make that shot at the end of the game when everything's on the line. And tell me if there's a better sharpshooter than old King David.
King David.
Guy's an unbelievable shot, fearless. Saul once asked him to go get him 100 foreskins of Philistines. Came back with 200.
200.
And that's
the kind of commitment.
that's the kind of cutthroat mentality that I need from my star scorer. David, he's taken a lot of shots. He is our Kobe Bryant, RIP.
Okay. So before I start tearing, I'm going to give mine and then we'll talk about the flaws, okay?
All right.
Mine is John the disciple, okay?
Okay.
One, and mainly the only reason that I could think of was because he apparently is decently fast, okay? Because when they both hear about the resurrection, him and Peter take off, and John beats him there by seemingly a sizable margin. And so I want a shooting guard to be a kind of a slash and kick kind of guy. So I'm going John. He might have some injuries due to the being boiled in oil. But he's a guy who I think is a solid. He's like the Klay Thompson, like never going to have an issue with this guy. Just be consistent, show up, do his job, and also, probably has some wheels on him. So I'm going John. The problem that I have with David is I sense a lot of locker room issues with David.
Why is that? Why would you say that?
Well, see, I tend to recall this story about Uriah the Hittite's wife and Bathsheba, who, David murdered him. and like this consistent pattern, because you also see it with when David comes back to Jerusalem, or when David comes back after his exile, he goes and gets his wife, Michael or Michelle, or I think it was that one. And he goes and takes her from the guy that she's married to. Mm-hmm. And the guy is so heartbroken that he follows after. And David's just like, nah, she's mine. You can keep following, but I'm not. And so, there's two instances just off the top of my head where he's dealing in other people's relationships. And so I don't want that in my locker room. That's a locker room cancer.
I mean, that's one way to put it. So if you've watched the Last Dance documentary, you know that Michael Jordan, not exactly beloved by his teammates. He was, if he wasn't Michael Jordan, he would be universally hated for being a terrible jerk. But you know what he did? He hit all the shots when they were necessary. And that's what David would do for this team. And I think, as we're going to find out over the course of this conversation, scoring is very important. And this guy can be, if you've seen Hoosiers, he's our Jimmy Chitwood. He's the guy who comes in. He's shooting on a rim against the barn out back, and he's gonna make all the shots. And I never have to worry if he is gonna freeze in the big moment.
No, you don't have to worry about the big moment. That's not what I'm worried about. Like, if he gets to the court, he'll play well. Like, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that if we're in a full season, like if we're in a 7-game series, then I want David. But if we got like an 82-game season in the playoffs, dude's gonna do something that's gonna,
That's why leadership is very important here.
So you think Joseph's gonna be able to keep David in line?
I think if anyone can keep David in line, it's going to be Joseph. And if there's one person that I'm willing to risk maybe getting out of line, it's somebody like David, who I know is going to get buckets.
I thought you were going to say would repent.
He might do that. There's a chance that he does that as well.
Yeah, the Psalm 51 is beautiful. I just like to take a moment and just laugh at how ridiculous this conversation is. I love it. This is exactly what I wanted. Okay.
So, sidebar, do we make Nathan the team chaplain to keep him in line? Because I think that solves all the problems.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I hate to give you 2 in a row, but it's hard to argue. I mean, we need somebody who can hit outside shots.
Yeah.
Somebody that can overcome height disadvantages. And we also need the face of our franchise. And the writers of 1st and 2nd Samuel have like a crush on David. It's weird. It's like every time they talk about David, they're like, and he was good looking, and he was a good looking kid. So okay. So we got a starting point guard is Joseph, and our shooting guard, spreading the floor is King David. So let's go to our power forward. I think I got you on this one. A small forward. Okay, sorry, small forward.
So I think character is very important here. I've also said
character is important.
Character is important when you need people with high character next to David to keep him in line. So that being said, I want someone who is skilled, who is high character in this position, who has overcome adversity. As like a LeBron James, he was highly touted at a young age and did not disappoint. I'm going with King Josiah for my small forward.
King Josiah.
Highly
touted at a young age.
He was king at 8 years old.
He was king at 8. Is Josiah the one, though, that invited the people to come tour how rich he was, and then the Assyrians came back? Was that Josiah? I think that was Josiah. Double check that.
I have to confirm.
We'll go to research on that. One of the kings in the Old Testament had emissaries, however you say that word, from either Persia or Babylon. Or Assyria. I can't remember. And they toured his wealth, and he like showed off how rich Israel was, and then that ended up being a reason why the Babylonians came. So I believe it was from Babylon, but I think that was King Josiah. That was either Josiah or Hezekiah. I get those two mixed up. But king at 8 years old, highly touted at a young age, got kingship experience. One of the good ones. It was hard to be a good one back in that day.
Very few, in fact.
Okay. Well, I'm running out of filibustering to try.
Also, I can confirm it was Hezekiah who brought in the invoice from Babylon. So Woo. Josiah skates on that one. That was not him.
Josiah skates on that. Okay.
Yes.
All right, King Josiah. I got you on this one. I'm bringing in my ringer. I wanted the small forward, really kind of the anchor of the team. I'm going Peter. I want somebody that'll cut off somebody's ear in a hard time. I wanted somebody that'll put himself out there, try to make the play. Somebody who will go the extra mile for the rebound. Somebody who's impulsive to just kind of mess up everything. So Peter is my choice for our small forward.
Honestly, I have no argument. I like Peter as the Charles Barkley figure on this basketball team.
That's right.
He's willing to scrap, but he's also a high, positive scorer. He gets in there, he does what needs to be done, and he gets buckets as well. I mean, he was basically the leader of the church for a decent portion there.
I see him as like young Dennis Rodman, diving for loose rebounds into the crowd.
I've got young Dennis Rodman coming up. That's next. Okay. So Peter can be Barkley. This guy, my next guy up, he is going to be Rodman.
Joseph is our point guard. King David is our shooting guard. We got Peter at our small forward. Let's go to our power forward. Who's your power forward in biblical basketball?
The original Dennis Rodman, Joab.
Joab.
Joab was David's general, and I can't like enough tell you to go read 2 Samuel. Just read through it and notice where all Joab pops up. Like David's like, hey, my son Absalom has rebelled against us. I need you to go get him and in this rebellion. Go get him and bring him back to me. So Joab murdered him, of course. Then later on, and
Joab didn't murder Absalom.
He had people kill him.
No. He so Absalom was caught with his hair in the
yes.
Yeah, and then gotcha.
Yeah, and he took some spears and he's like, hey guys.
Who wants to play pin the spear on the Absalom?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so he does
gotcha.
that, and then there's another story. I can't remember the name of who he kills, but so there was this
2 stories like that. He kills.
There's a few of them. He kills one guy in the Holy of Holies. That happens.
Yeah, he kills. He kills
another guy who went and worked with Absalom.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, he's like, hey, my B. And the guy like dropped his sword, and Joab's like, hey, bring it in. And it just runs him through with a sword. So Joab is going to do all the dirty work.
He's sneaky. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the elbow. He's the elbow. He's the Bill Lambier.
Yeah. He walks into a game saying, I have 6 fouls, and I'm going to use every one of them. and a team with the star power that we've got right now with Joseph, David, and Peter is going to need somebody who's willing to go out there, be Rasheed Wallace, be Dennis Rodman, and throw some elbows into some faces and dive on the floor and set screens. And that's what Joab's going to do. He's also going to do a whole bunch of stuff you tell him not to do, but it's actually going to be a plus for, keeping your reign as it was for David. So it's going to help the team, even the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Even when he gets multiple technicals and thrown out of a game, he's going to do it in a way that increases morale. So I want Joab down there.
Yeah, Joab has one of the craziest deaths in the Bible to me. There's that concept that took me a while to learn of just because somebody in the Bible is doing something does not mean that thing is right.
Yes.
We get taught in Sunday school, I think, that these biblical characters are flawless, and then you read the Bible, you're like, I don't think so. But
David does a lot of stuff that that God is not like, hey, go do this.
Yeah. And so Joab gets dragged out of the temple. He's holding on like a kid around a pole because he doesn't want to go. He knows he's gonna die. And so no, that's Joab. Okay, I went a different direction character wise. I chose Stephen as in the martyr that started the persecution and the spread of the church in Acts. The reason why is because he's good in a rock fight. A lot of
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, a lot of times these basketball games can turn, and you need somebody who's been there. Somebody who's been there when the rocks are flying.
Oh,
yes. Okay. That joke was in my head. I built this entire game around telling that one joke.
I like to think you thought of that joke yesterday, and then you were like, that's our topic.
That's our topic. How can I get this light off? No. All jokes aside, Stephen is one of the coolest Bible characters. Mm-hmm. He's basically head of the ancient Meals on Wheels program, and just gets taken up by the Pharisees, gives a big speech where then he gives this entire summation of the entire Bible, then looks at the Pharisees and is like, and you're the one who killed Jesus, so congratulations. Which you want somebody with, pun intended, the stones.
Man.
That'll do that. And then he gets dragged out and gets stoned to death. But right before he gets stoned to death, he looks up and he sees the heavens open and Jesus standing at the right hand of the Father, which I believe is the only time in Scripture where Jesus is standing at the right hand of the Father. Every other time he is seated. So you almost have Jesus giving Stephen a standing ovation, it seems like, or at least respecting the hustle. So, you know, I went with the opposite end. I figured we have Peter kind of messing stuff up. And now with the current construction of our team, you have Joseph, good character guy. David, bad character guy. Peter, he's a follower.
He's middle of the road. He's middle of the road.
It's all about the structure for Peter, you know, because even after he denies 3 times and Jesus brings him back, you do see in Acts where Peter gets a little racist.
Like, he does.
Where he's putting the Jewish people over the Gentiles. So Peter follows, man. He's a follower. So I want to add another character guy on the team in order to raise the morale, especially before I bring this sinner in, which is going to really bring down the team. So I'm standing firm on Stephen over Joab.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am going to have at least a big a problem at center as you are.
All right.
So I think Stephen's probably the way to go. I mean, if Joab comes open, if somebody's trading him, I'm picking up the phone.
All right. So here we are. Point guard, Joseph. Shooting guard, David. Small forward, Peter. Power forward, Stephen. And now we hit the core of our team. Who's going to be clogging up the middle? Who's going to be the center?
So there are 2 very good options, obviously. You can go height, or you can go superhuman strength.
See, this is where I'd like to point out that you have, with the Old Testament,
yeah,
really the advantage in this
I definitely do. This one's mine, basically, either way. So it's the question of what I want to do. So really, it comes down to who was going to mesh more well with David. And the one I wanted to choose, which is Goliath, he and David might not get along. It may very well be like late Shaq and Kobe, where it's just not going to work, and we're going to have to blow up the whole team.
So much talent.
So much talent.
Right.
If we could just get David and Goliath to be cool with each other, only in this basketball game, then we'd be great. But because that is the case, where I cannot have Goliath and David on the same team, I'm going to go with Samson, the strongest individual human being that's ever lived on the face of the earth.
Samson has the same concerns for me as David, though. If you have David and Samson on the same team, there's going to be locker room issues. There just is.
That's what Joseph and Stephen are for. They're to keep this thing going. I guess we should also pick a coach after this.
That's a good one, too. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, you have the two biggest womanizers of the Bible in there. And so
it's the NBA.
All right. That's hard to argue with. He'd clear out space. He'd get buckets.
He'd be the greatest screener of all time.
It's true. Until somebody cuts his hair, he's very useful. But that is a big, if he goes down with the injury report, right? If he gets a little off the top, then he's useless. He's completely useless.
And that's fair. But I am going to stick with Samson as mine, just because the David Goliath thing is just not going to work out long term. If we have one game, then I go Goliath. But if we've got to go through a whole season and the playoffs and build for the future, it's got to be Samson.
All right. So my choice, there's some character issues with this one. Okay. I'm going Barnabas. Give me the dude who's murdered some people. Give me the dude that's in prison that they're just like Pilate when he goes out to the crowd and they're like, kill Jesus. He's like, well, you choose with Jesus or this
Are you
Barnabas?
sure?
Yeah. This dude's a maniac. So I figured, go with the guy who tried to start a rebellion, but it's hard to argue with Samson, really. I mean,
he's got the size. That's something we are in desperate need of. I can't imagine Steven's a big guy, so we're gonna need some width at the
It's
rim.
true.
And I think Samson's going to be able to do that. Good luck backing him down in the post. Good luck.
We do have a small team, but we're built for the modern NBA, I feel like.
Yes, we are ready for small ball because Samson is also really fast, very mobile big man.
That's true. Some noticeable mentions, some honorable mentions that we want coming off our bench. I feel like Elijah, he outran a chariot once.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he'd probably be good. Elisha as well.
Both, definitely.
Yeah,
Yes.
both the Elijahs, but you know, just can't have them on the court at the same time. Too much miscommunication.
Yeah.
Too many similar names. All right. So that's our biblical starting five. Joseph, running point. David as our shooting guard. Peter as our small forward. Power forward is Stephen, and Samson is our center. I feel like they could have one good year, but as soon as the winning started, they'd all.
Yeah, I definitely think I'd be worried about Samson long term, most of all. Because I think David, with the right supporting cast, I don't think you have to worry about him.
That's true. And
But
David at least would feel bad.
Samson's a problem.
Yeah, Samson. At some point, Samson's just going to have the whole thing crumble down on top of us.
Yes.
Right? All right, so who's the coach?
The coach is a great question. I think that one way we can go with this is Moses.
Moses is a good one.
He's got the leadership you want.
He knows what it is to be in the palace, right? So then he can relate to David really well. He can relate to Joseph really well, have that personal relationship.
He'd be a player's coach.
Yeah, he knows what it is, though, to be in the desert. So, like, Samson, he would click with. Stephen, he'd click with. Peter. So that's a good one.
I mean, Jesus, we didn't have him as a player, but
we can't have him as a coach.
Are you sure he can really draw plays up in the dirt?
That's funny. So, like, I'm tempted Abraham, just because, like, Abraham could always look at anybody and be like, "I'm your daddy."
Yeah, that's true.
I'm the OG. Yeah, but then you have the same kind of problems with Abraham. As I feel like that's too many Samsons, too many Davids, too many Abrahams on one team. You know, you got a guy sleeping with prostitutes, you got a guy killing another guy for his wife, and then you got a guy saying my wife's my sister. That's just too much media attention on that team that you don't want.
Another potential option is Paul. As a leader, he would definitely be willing to lead. Could he rub people the wrong way?
Well,
very possible.
Some conflicts with Stephen.
Didn't even think about it.
Yes. Stephen probably would be the most excited when he sees Paul. Like, thanks for organizing my death, dude. Like, there'd probably be some words, right? You know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Walked right into that one. Didn't even think about it.
So, like, my thoughts are Moses or Joshua. Like, Joshua's got that good battle command.
Yeah.
Which I think could come in handy. But I think it's got to be Moses.
Definitely.
Got to be Moses.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's the kind of star coach that's also going to get, sort of these like other players you need to fill out your bench. People are going to want to play for Moses.
They just are. Moses, yeah.
They just are.
I do like it because he doesn't put up with complaining all that much. Doesn't do a good job of that. Which
he's very hard nosed.
He's also a hard nosed coach.
Shiny nosed, I guess, because of the
depends.
Yeah.
Did he just come down from the mountain?
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Well, that is our Bible starting five of basketball. I probably misarranged those words, but it'll work.
All of the correct words were in there.
Yes.
We can fix it in post. It'll be fine.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to that. If you are listening still at this point, you are officially a Bible nerd, because if you found that conversation interesting, then you there's a place for you here. And yeah, I mean, we miss Aaron. We were hoping that Aaron might jump on the pod, but it doesn't look like he's gonna make it. I guess he's too busy floating over the Midwest somewhere, or hunting down treasures with Nick Cage,
or floating on a giant peach in the ocean with numerous strange creatures. I think there's a spider. I'm pretty sure there's a spider.
Oh, that sounds terrifying. Or touring a chocolate factory in order to win the chocolate factory.
Or he's been discovered as a musical act by an alcoholic Bradley Cooper, and he's about to hit it big.
Or he's been discovered as a musical act by Jeff Bridges and is about to hit it big.
Or he's been discovered as a musical act by whoever the first one was in like the 30s.
All right. Well, Sage, I'm going to kick the last word over to you. I don't know really what the lesson of this podcast is, but I leave it to you to dictate it.
I think the lesson is when you put together a team of individuals, character is important, talent also important, and situation is important. You got to know your people, and you got to try to put people in a position to succeed. And that's the message of this episode of the podcast.
It's a good lesson. All right. I think we're probably going to do another extended edition next week, but we won't get back to normal until the week after. Yeah, we're just taking a break, kind of getting our feet underneath us. So thanks everybody for listening, and hope you have a good rest of the week.